Does South Africa's Minister of Police deserve a medal? Let's ask Ian Cameron of Action Society. Welcome, Ian.
Thank you, Chris. It's good to be with you again.
Tell us about this medal he has been honoured with. What is it for exactly?
My honest opinion is that it's certainly not for good policing service. I think it's because Minister Bheki Cele is a way and a means basically for the Chinese government and certain well-connected Chinese officials to get to the South African state and obviously the ANC. So I don't for one second buy that it's got anything to do with competent policing. I actually think it's a slap in the face of so many good police officers that have lost their lives recently. In the last 2 weeks, the last few months, we've seen an increase in police murders, and it's really alarming to see the rate at which violent crime in general is increasing. I'm sure we'll see that in the coming 2 quarters of crime statistic releases. The point is just that Bheki Cele by no means is a merit appointment. We all know that he does not have a good track record, whether considering his time as the National Commissioner of Police several years ago, or as his time as the Minister of Police. Remember that under Minister Bheki Cele, more than 125,000 people have been killed in South Africa.
Now, what track record does the Minister have of keeping South Africans safe?
Well, he certainly doesn't. So when he was the National Commissioner, he made the controversial shoot to kill comments. He didn't for one moment succeed in winning the trust of South Africans. In fact, many people started questioning police training and capability. At that stage, or just after he was the National Commissioner, an internal audit was done of the police and specifically their training, and it indicated that a very large amount of people in uniform didn't actually work to get those uniforms. They didn't pass the necessary examination, etc. Many of them were granted access to still becoming police members, despite the fact that they failed remedials time and time again. And the aim of Bheki Cele at that stage was simply to get as many cops in uniform in preparation for the FIFA World Cup that was following. Shortly after him being sacked due to implication in alleged corruption by the then Public Protector Cele Ramaphosa, he became a agriculture minister, deputy agricultural minister. Yeah, I think it was quite damaging for agriculture. But nevertheless, when he became the police minister in 2018, so much came up in terms of questioning the capability of SAPS because everyone started asking, but wait a minute, you sack someone for supposed corruption, but then you bring him back as the minister of the very job, so the political leader of the very body that you were previously sacked for while managing. So there are so many questions. There's questions about his involvement in the taxi industry in KZN and elsewhere. There's questions about properties and property rental to SAPS and other government institutions. There are just so many questions regarding Bheki Cele, and he keeps on making silly remarks. You know, he recently referred to a young lady and said she's lucky that she was only raped once. Completely insensitive, without any compassion to the public at large. And yesterday he did a press conference where he was releasing, information or successes by the police. And it was quite alarming to see that many of those successes were certainly not police successes in isolation. In fact, the majority of the big successes had quite a bit of private sector and community influence. And many of the successes came due to pressure by the public after the police had failed to do the job in the first place. In the last 2 weeks, we learned that Crime Intelligence Unit bought over 100 million rands worth of vehicles almost 2 years ago, and those vehicles are still stuck in a garage in Pretoria. They haven't even been registered yet. So you spend 100 million rand on vehicles. Your cops, your uniformed cops, don't have vehicles. They don't have the resources that they need. But you can justify having 100 million rands worth of vehicles for crime intelligence parked in a garage. Many of them have lost their warranties by now. And so the list goes on and on and on. And under Cele's watch, jointly under his watch, the South African Police Service had lost or had stolen from them over 20,000 firearms, millions upon millions of rounds of ammunition too. And again, as I said, the list goes on.
Now, so many people and organizations and political parties have called on President Cyril Ramaphosa to sack the minister. Yet he still defends the minister and tries to convince the nation that the minister is doing a good job. What is their relationship all about? Why does he seem to be protecting the minister?
Well, I think they protect each other, and that's the reason. Remember, if the police functioned properly, the whole ANC would need to be sacked. The entire organization is built on a corrupt system. It's built on a lack of ethics and a complete destruction of integrity. Actually, there is no integrity in that organization, and that's the way that they operate. It is literally an organized crime syndicate that calls themselves a political party. And to be honest, I saw the release today. The South African Police Service is nothing short of an organized crime syndicate. You know, I read a report, I'll come back to the president now, but I read a report today that shows that the latest global organized crime index actually shows that South Africa has been taken over by organized crime syndicates. And for that to happen, you really do need serious corruption and organized crime capacity in the state, in the police, and we are now ranked 7th in the entire world for this organized crime criminality score. And that is really, really alarming. So again, back to the president, it obviously reflects badly on him and Minister Cele. But again, if SAPS and law enforcement functions properly, and the different institutions that work alongside them, like the National Prosecuting Authority, or rather, let's say the Department of Justice and Correctional Services, if all of those bodies function properly, then the president wouldn't have a job. Cele wouldn't have a job. And I also think they can't really sack Cele because he's got so much dirt on all of them that if they were to sack him and he starts spilling the beans, it will be quite an awkward silence for a lot of people in the higher ranks of the ANC.
Yet the minister manages or tries to spin the crime statistics. Can you just take us back to the last once he revealed?
Yeah, so the last statistics were, I shouldn't smile about them, but I smile at them because I find the minister is a clown. The way that he actually, I always say they spit in the face of good cops and more importantly, innocent civilians. We currently have at least 3 murders per hour in South Africa, according to the last stats, anywhere between 69 and 71 murders per day. I think it's going to show quite a major increase in the coming crime stats release. He celebrated the fact that it was 2 or 3 murders less per day. Now, obviously, it's good to see lives are saved, but the existing murder rate that we have and the quarter that they looked at between April and July or June was the equivalent of deaths that were seen, or actually a little bit more, in Ukraine during the war. So we're literally seeing that South Africa South African people are being murdered at higher rates than some war zones. So utterly concerning to see them almost nonchalantly speak of people as just being numbers, statistics. In terms of children, we have about 3 children murdered every day at the moment. That quarter, I think it was just under 300 children for the quarter that were murdered in the country. Child murder is definitely on the increase. And then in terms of rape, these are just the reported ones. Remember that rape is one of the most underreported crimes in South Africa, but reported rapes, we speak anywhere of 120 rapes reported per day in the country. So Chris, we've got a serious crisis on hands. I don't know how to explain it better. The challenge is we can speak statistics, but people get desensitized. At the same time, you can't always share every graphic detail of the stories. But I can tell you that the cases that we work with from Action Society side, it really is utterly frustrating to see the general decline of capability, ethics, integrity, and just a vision for a sustainable future in South African police.
Thank you. That was Ian Cameron of Action Society telling BizNews why he doesn't think our Minister of Police deserves a medal. Thank you, Ian.
No problem, Chris. Thank you. Sure. Makes me so cross, these things.